Welcome to Substrate Seminar, everyone. So I'm your host, Sasha. I'm developer advocate at Parachains Technologies. Seminar is a bi-weekly event for Substrate builders, for those of you who don't know, and also community members just curious to learn and share their learnings about all things Substrate. Today's guest is Ramsey, who's a lead steward of Kabocha, and I'm particularly excited to have him share his experience in how he built a test network called Popart, which really is, I would say, kind of a special approach on a community test network. He'll tell us all about. I'm quickly going to kind of just lay the lands here on what we'll be learning today and go through a couple housekeeping items. So today we'll be learning about how to add a validator to a test network, and also how to join as an existing validator. So it's how to join as a validator to an existing test network. This is particularly useful in learning how to set up your own node infrastructure for a test network, and also just getting comfortable in learning these motions in preparation for perhaps one day being a validator for your own networks or being a validator for a production network. So before we get started, Ramsey will be guiding through this demo step by step, and I'm actually going to be doing this demo live. So Ramsey and I have kind of touched base and went through this before, but this will also be very fresh because who knows what we can come up, what kind of errors we might get through, and it'll be a lot of fun, a big learning experience for you guys too. Maybe you can ask your questions. And you can follow along. So if you actually go to this link at the bottom of the Crowdcast, you'll be able to follow along with a markdown file that I put together to serve as a step-by-step guide. So we encourage you to ask questions. We really want you to ask questions. The whole point is for us to learn together. There's one thing that I wanted to mention that's kind of special. That's sort of a new experiment. As a host of Seminar for several months, I really want to try to make it better. So this is kind of the biggest housekeeping item right now, which is I want to learn about what you guys think of being more a part, being more like active participants in providing like ideas and pitching maybe topics that you would like to see at Substrate Seminar. So essentially what I put together is a GitHub repo, which really acts as an experiment right now. It's meant to just capture interest. Like I want to see if you guys are interested in this. So essentially if you go to a link that I'm going to post right now, you'll see that there's this repository where you're able to basically put your thoughts on what topics you'd like to see, or maybe you want to present something yourself. So really kind of a way to gauge like what kind of topics you'd like to have and participate in Seminar in a more active way. So speaking of proposals, my final housekeeping item for today is that the Polkadot Decoded conference is happening in June, and the deadline for submitting your call for proposals has been extended to March 21st. So please, I encourage you to submit your ideas and using this link right here. So without further ado, Ramsey, how's it going?
Hey, Sasha, how are you doing?
I'm pretty good. Super excited for this. As you can
Me
see,
too.
I have my telemetry already all set up.
Good one.
So
we haven't rehearsed this much, have we?
Which
is kind of a good thing for people's learning.
Definitely.
Hopefully we're going to make a lot of mistakes here so that we get some nuggets of wisdom here, build some muscle memory. You know, I've been working on like I've been hanging around Substrate community for like 12 months now, and I've come a long way. So basically, yeah, was interested in being like a runtime developer, and in that journey, I've been learning how to basically learning about all the facets of a blockchain and things like that, and so currently my role is a technical steward for Kabocha, which is a parachain candidate for Kasama, and we were spawned from the Edgeware community. And so yeah, so like basically, like I've been learning for the past 12 months, and doing this with you in a public live setting. Obviously, not in a live setting, it's kind of challenging enough, even after doing this many times. So yeah, it's kind of exciting, and hopefully a good learning experience for other people who are interested in going a similar path to me. Basically, I got the kind of privileged role really of being able to be like a key developer in a parachain project, and it's a big learning experience.
Yeah, so actually, I remember you and I had first spoke when I sort of learned about Popart. So can you tell us a little bit about Popart and what you've done there, and sort of what you plan to do? And
so with so I guess like my kind of learning process to getting enough, a minimum viable competence to be able to participate in a parachain integration to work on that process is basically started off with obviously launching my own local relay network, which there's good docs for. They're in the Substrate docs, and then but like there was a lot of blind spots there. It's like how do you launch how do you participate in kind of a shared network, and create your own keys and all the kind of nitty gritties around that. It's easy enough like launching Alice and Bob, but I guess a lot of people want to scratch the itch of wanting to create a secure enough production chain. So I started off. I was too apprehensive. I was a bit scared to like connect to Rococo because I didn't want to waste too many people's time on Rococo, as I'm sure other people have been thinking that. And so I was talking to a guy called Sam Ellerman, who's another Substrate community member, and he was also part of Kylin Network, and they were managing the Cha-Cha-Cha relay chain, which is basically another Rococo style relay chain. And he basically was onboarding parachain testnets, and one thing I learned about that process is buddying up, like essentially like buddying up with people is a great way of like learning and getting experience together. And of course, like, if you're just doing things as a lone ranger, that's all good. But in order to create a distributed network, you need like, share the burden with other people, and going from 1 to 2 is an important step. So
definitely, yeah. And actually, Sam is the one who's created this chat on Element, where a bunch of Substrate developers gather, and I think you can ask questions and collaborate and buddy up, as you said. And I think that's a super cool, valuable part of being in this community, right?
Exactly, and that's what we're doing now, basically.
And that's what we're doing now. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And so basically we got to, so I kind of struggled in that process of trying to connect my parachain to the relay network. And there was a lot of like unknown unknowns basically, and blind spots. So I feel like in order to really be good at, maintaining and setting up and maintaining a parachain, you kind of have to get good at, get a reasonable enough competence about relay chains. And so this is how Popart began. So I buddied up with another community member in Substrate and in Edgeware. His name's Jelly Dowell, aka Paul, and he's quite like he's got a lot of experience in running a validator on Edgeware. So it was great to buddy up with him, and so we set up Popart Relay Network, which is basically a Rococo fork, but is basically so we're all about kind of community values. Edgeware basically is a community run blockchain, and we're hanging around here. We've been around here like 2.5 years. I came in like a year ago, and it's quite a fun place to be. They're very welcoming, and I'm now managed to get on the council, and I got funded to essentially participate in this Kabocha parachain. And so like we got a lot of like interesting ideas in Edgeware, and we always thinking about values and how to essentially how to design systems, and being very conscious about our values that we bake into these systems. And we kind of have a holistic approach here, and it's a very very much a community driven. One analogy I like to give is basically where Polkadot is sort of the Barcelona FC of chains. We're kind of the Ajax football club, and if you don't know much about that, then basically Ajax is like very renowned for youth team development. And they have the great kind of grassroots youth team system, and so like essentially like they bring players into, they give the younger players opportunities to participate in the first team. So like I guess on reflection, I'm an example of that. I came into Edgeware and was basically learning as I went, on the job essentially, and got to a level of competence where I'm now able to kind of share back a little bit of like, it's kind of a little bit of muscle memory. I wouldn't say I'm too deeply, like I've got a lot more to learn, and it's slowly starting to percolate and assimilate. I've started to get, there's a lot of great learning resources, in Substrate. Of course, you've got so a few shout outs to a few people, yourself, Sasha, of course, Dan Forbes before you. He was hosting some great shows, great learning experience. Also Sean Tabarisi, of course, Joshi Orndorff, Dan Shields have been really helpful. And who else? There's a few others as well. And so like,
definitely a lot of stuff out there, but it's also why I think this topic is particularly interesting. For instance, I'm somebody who's more experienced with building runtimes with Frame and kind of tinkering with that stuff, but I've never really launched my own private network where there's actual validators running the network. They're distributed. There's maybe a friend that's running one, another friend that's running another, etc. And so I think that a lot of us here are kind of maybe a bit new to this, even though that we've maybe been accustomed to building with Substrate for a while. So looking at the polls, actually, there's some interesting stuff. Essentially, there's a number of people that have already set up their local relay testnet. And there's a fair number that just haven't really had the experience of connecting a validator to their network. So I think we have a good mix of people here, and basically most of the votes on how long have you been learning with Substrate is less than 3 months. So I think it's going to be fun. This is going to be fun for me because I'm going to actually be in the driver's seat, and Ramsey's going to be kind of guiding me through the steps. So on that note, guys, like I strongly encourage you to ask questions while we go through this. If you click that call to action link in the Crowdcast, you will get to the step-by-step, which we have right here. So kind of just jumping into things, what I have set up is half of my screen is the steps that we're going to be following today. And the other half is just a VS Code window that will have all the different terminals we'll be using. And I think we can get started. Is there any last things you want to mention, Ramsey, before we get started? Thanks for the confidence.
Let's get started for sure.
Okay, cool. So for the YouTube watchers, you should be able to easily find this link, by the way. And again, this is an experiment. I'm thinking about maybe making Substrate seminars more interactive with regards to hosting past content and also proposing new content. So this is what this repository is for. Again, an experiment. I would love to hear your feedback. I've actually just posted a poll about that. So without further ado, what are the different things that we're going to kind of be doing today? So I think it helps to kind of just understand that the goal really is we'll have this Polkadot.js apps window up, and we should be able to see when we go to Network Explorer, Node Info, we should be able to see a new validator that we'll add to this set of validators. And just taking a step back here, what are we really doing? We're adding a proof of authority node to this network. And it's not just any type of node. It's a node that is able to become part of authoring a block for this blockchain. Why do we care about testnets? Why do we need why does a team need a testnet? Well, the simple answer is before putting anything on production, you need a testnet. But a very important part to understand is that many teams will have their own private testnets, and then they might be also connected to a public testnet, and then they will eventually connect to a public relay chain such as Kusama or Polkadot. So the picture I'm trying to paint here is having your own testnet is really important, and connecting to a testnet is also possibly a step that you would like to take. So what we're looking at here is a fork of Rococo. This is Popart. It's the test network that Ramsey has set up, and essentially it's very different than Rococo, right? Because Ramsey actually has all these connected peers, which are some of them are validators on this network. You can see that there are some nodes that have this authority role, and there's others that just have the full role. The authority role signifies that there are nodes that are running as validators. The full just it just means that there are nodes that are just kind of keeping track of what's happening on the blockchain and keeping store of what those blocks are, but it's not actually acting as a validator. Is that true, Ramsey? Is that correct? Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, there's so not all the validators are my own. So we're small, but like multi share.
We can see this here, right? We actually see where they are. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So the authority nodes are the validators, and the full nodes are just nodes that have more of a passive role to play. They can sign extrinsics. You can make RPC calls to them, but they're not involved in the validation or consensus process, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, and kind of, yeah. Another thing to mention there is like, it's not easy to launch it's not easy to what's the word? It's not easy to kind of preserve or to persist a Babe relay chain. Like there are things that can go wrong, and like you can actually brick a chain to the point where there's no coming back. Like you have to start it again. And so like one of the and one of the reasons for that is that I think you have the rules for Babe is that there has to be a block produced, at least one block produced every session, and if it's not, then there's no going back. So so essentially, yeah, I guess like we could talk about some of the like what we're doing now is like what our learning objective is in this seminar, and like how that kind of fits into sort of some general overall objectives. So I guess right now we want to get kind of good at connecting our validator to a relay network. And so like our overall, like where we want to get to is essentially launching our own relay network, or at least so launching our own relay network. And so as I said before there, that like you need to be able to persist a Babe chain, and so you have to be kind of good at like managing and maintaining your validators, because if you don't, if the validator goes offline, or basically if all your validators go offline for like however long a session is, which is probably like an hour or two, then it's game over. You have to start again. And if you've got a lot of people involved in it, then it's kind of like a little bit annoying, essentially, to have to start all over again. So yeah. Anyway, should we get started then?
Yeah. So essentially, the first thing that we're doing is we're going to clone this repository, which contains a relay chain. It's a fork of Rococo, essentially. But so cloning that will basically give you a. So I have this node running already. Ramsey, should I just stop it, or
You can keep that one going.
Okay.
Because we want to keep that one going because so what me and Sasha have done to basically prepare for this seminar is, we've gone through the paces, gone through these steps to add a validator to this network. And so you have to wait. You basically have to wait until there's a new validator election. And so that happens at the end of every session, or otherwise called an epoch. And so we've connected Sasha's validator. We've registered his validator about an hour ago. And so when this new epoch begins, so Sasha, if you go to the block explorer,
yeah,
and kind of like widen the screen a little bit,
just go to this one.
Then you'll be able to see like how long is left in the session. If you go to block explorer, that's it.
Right, about 1 hour.
55 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So basically, a new session has begun. So maybe we can start by like seeing if you actually start producing blocks yet.
So I go to.
So basically,
my chain state.
So you can see here, like you go back to the block explorer where you were a second ago.
Yeah.
Then, and if you've saved your account as a name, if you remember your address, you'll be able to see on the third column there that's the account ID for the essentially the stash. That's basically the account ID for the validator that was chosen to produce a block. So if you can see your address there, you'll be able to see that you're participating in the process.
So
we can also check the chain state to see if you've been selected as a member of the new validator set.
Yeah, let's do that. It's probably easier to do. I'm not sure if anyone else watching has a better.
Just zoom in a couple. That's a bit better. So I think, where is it? It's if you go to validate, that's it. You know what to do.
Chain state.
Yeah, you're there already.
Manager.
Yep.
And I should see my.
Or actually, there's where else? You can go to. I forget. I've got it written down somewhere.
You know what? It might have been that. Because I basically purged the keys, so I think we're going to assume that we'll start from scratch.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me just remind myself where everything is.
Yeah. So really, like taking from this first step, I've actually cloned this and I've built it already. And if I copy this this command, essentially, there's a couple of flags here. The important ones are that I'm running as a validator. And I've given a name to my node. So if I just rename it to, okay, I have to do that stuff. I'll put to node 02. Okay. So what is this doing, Ramsey? Essentially, the important bits is the chain spec, right, and the base path.
So yeah. So basically, yes, this command is gonna run your node as a validator. So like there's a few flags in there that are like not necessarily have to be there, but we can talk about that. I guess we can talk about that now. So those RPC commands that you see are essentially, they're not required, because what you want to do with a validator, obviously it's not so much of a big deal in a testnet setting, but we can talk about it now. Essentially is that, you want your validator to be as secure as possible. And you don't want it to be able to be interacted with outside of your network, outside of your machine. You just want it to be able to validate blocks. So those ports, you don't really want, you don't want people to be able to make RPC calls directly to your validator, because what can happen is it's prone to get DOSed essentially, and then get taken out of the network. And that's a way of attacking the network. If everyone's validator had their ports open like that, then it would be an easy way to break the network essentially. Right. But anyway, we'll just run it. We can just run it like that for now.
Yeah, so it's actually running right now. And so what I was doing when I was learning this by myself, my kind of trick to just know that this is actually connected to the peers here, right? You really want to check that it's peering. Well, I should be able to see that this node is connected. Wait, so before we check that, how would it be connected, Ramsey? This has to do with the boot nodes, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if we in our chain spec, there are many different kinds of properties. One of them being a boot node. So if we look in our chain spec, which is in specs.
Yeah. So if I go specs, I'm using this one.
That's correct. So this is the raw chain spec. So you can actually see some raw data here at the top, some plain data here at the top. And so you can see in boot nodes area, we have two boot nodes currently, and they're both run by Jellied Owl, who's my colleague. And in order to connect to a network, you need to boot through another peer that's already on the network, essentially. And right. So there are boot nodes there are nodes that only role is to be a boot node. I think it would be, I was watching Will's, who's in the chat right now, one of his videos where I learned about validators, which we can link to. Yeah, he explains further why, you shouldn't have a boot node as a validator, essentially. But so, yes, so
so right now, I actually can see that it's connected. So I don't know what you do, Ramsey, to check, but again, my way of checking is there's the local node identity is here, right? If you go to the top, right after you've kind of submitted that command, you'll see local node identity. And if I go here to the actual the network node info part of Polkadot.js, I should be able to see it. There it is. So essentially, this just says, okay, that I'm peering with the other nodes in the network, right?
Correct. Yeah. So you're a connected peer. So that's great. That's a great first step. I mean, we've already done this. So so is that what you've done now? You've connected to the network. Okay. So we're doing it live. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're connected now.
Yeah.
You can also see that your peers, you have peers
right.
on your chain log. Oh, by the way, our faces are in the way of on the bottom left.
Oh, I can do that. Okay, cool.
Cool. Yeah, so the first step is of course, being connected to the correct network. It sounds obvious, but these mistakes can be made.
Yeah,
and especially actually, when you're tired, you forget. You overlook some very simple things. So it's good to kind of have a process, have a clear process in place. I can see you've got your terminals looking kind of tidy there. You've named them. That's very good.
Right.
Just having a nice clean process is a great way to kind of.
So one important thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ramsey. I just wanted to rectify something I said earlier, and Will gave a good explanation in the chat to clarify, which is right now I'm not actually a validator yet. I'm sort of the network understands me as a potential validator in a way. I could be a validator. I'm connected as something that could be a validator. Whereas if I just run without this validator flag, which I encourage you to do, I put the sort of instructions. If you wanted to do that, the instructions to do that would be basically you need to kind of create a new base path for that node, and you just run the node without the validator flag, and that will run as a full node that is not a validator, that is not supposed to be validator. It's just a full node. I hope that's correct. What I said. Will feel free to rectify that. So
Sounds
but
about right. You like,
what-
yeah, exactly. You want to launch and peer, and now we're going to go through the process of essentially making you become a validator.
Yeah. So this is where I'm sure, like in your learning experience, Ramsey, you have like lots of things to share with like little tidbits of like, make sure you keep things organized, make sure you have the right terminals, make sure you're, you have the right text file to track the different keys and stuff. So I'm going to actually try to do that like kind of step by step. So following this step 4 here, because we've done everything above. Now we need to create 2 different types of key pairs. And the reason that that's the case is because our
Sasha, do you mind just mention before you go into step 4 is that you have already compiled this. You've already compiled the
relay chain.
The relay chain, right?
Yeah,
it's already been compiled, and that takes a while.
You can see on a MacBook Pro, this takes about 15 minutes. And I did this actually to
really, that's pretty clean. That's pretty swift. You must have
that's fast.
Normally it takes a bit longer, especially Polkadot.
It would normally take up to 45 minutes, I think. Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
But good point. For those who have like completely sort of are coming from completely new.
And there's one more step as well. That when you launch that node, the command you just put in there, normally what happens is it has to sync with the relay chain. So there's this syncing process that takes place. So essentially it's syncing all the headers of the relay blocks currently produced. And because Popart's got like 450,000, it'll take a few hours. But we've done that to save, obviously, for the sake of time here in the seminar. Sasha has done that earlier. But one trick you can do, which is just above, which is in number 2, in point 2, is you can like if you sync something on the same chain on your same machine, then you can copy the database that's already been synced and copy it into your new base path. And so if you look in the command, if you bring up that command again, if you scroll up,
this one here,
maybe even higher, which is the command you put in to run to launch the binary. So yeah, that's correct. So yeah, so the base path, if you look at the base path, which is user local bin, bit lower.
Here.
That's correct. So that's where in your local machine, that's where you store all the parts of the block, the database, the Keystore. That's where things are stored. You can put it anywhere really, but we've put it in the user local bin Polkadot. And so if you've already synced a chain, which takes a few hours, you can copy something. So basically, if you've already launched a node and synced one, the next time you launch a node, you don't have to wait many hours. You can just copy the database and put it into your new node. And you've got to make sure that base path is different, because if the base path is the same, you're going to get an error. But yeah, it would be good if we can get some errors going, because that's where we get the best learning.
Yeah. Okay. But definitely, basically this tip section will kind of teach you how to do that. Like create a new directory and then just copy it all over, and then you just have to make sure you launch a chain with that actual base path. So let's hunt for some errors. Sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create these 2 key pairs. And real quick, why do we need it? Well, it's how it's part of the process of registering as a validator, where you need to be authoring blocks and finalizing blocks, and so you need the key pairs to do both things. So the way that I learned from you, Ramsey, was make sure that you have a separate terminal to do this, because it just helps keep things clean, right? So I'm going to create this subkey terminal. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to generate a key pair. So by the way, you need to have subkey installed in your machine. Maybe Ramsey, you can drop a link for that. But I already have it installed. I can check. Yep. I go subkey help. It'll give me a bunch of commands. It's just a CLI to generate key pairs, and basically the go-to key generator for substrate based chains. So I know it's there. And I'm going to do subkey generate -- scheme SR25519. So that's going to generate a special key pair that's only used for Babe. And I'm going to copy this and paste it into this random file here, just for me to keep track of. So I'm going to just call it like or a key pair. Okay, and then I'm going to have to do the same thing for grandpa. Okay, so I'm going to copy this command. Cool. So it's giving me the seed phrase, the secret seed, and the public key for this. Okay. So the next step is, so a real quick note on like these keys and maybe what would be best practice if you're doing this in a more serious setting. Ramsey, do you have any comments on that?
So you've created your Babe and your grandpa keys. Of course, these are hotkeys now, as will learn from Will's video, which is linked there, like what hotkeys and having really cold keys. You want to have frozen key. You want to have really cold keys, basically, when you're running a validator in a production environment. One that's in your stash account, which is a type of account. It's just an account with a stash account is a very cold account, and what cold is something that's probably going to be an air-gapped account that has no very secure, essentially. So what you've done here is so we've got all the information about your key. You've got the seed phrase, you've got the secret seed, public key, and the SS58 address. And now we can use those to submit them to the Keystore in our local machine. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So I've got the second terminal here called Keystore is really just a CD into this Keystore folder that will contain the keys for my local machine. And let's just check what's in it right now. There should be nothing in it. So there isn't anything in it. But now I'm gonna at step 5 submit an RPC call to use this key pair. So notice that this command actually isn't complete. You'll actually need to go ahead and add your Babe mnemonic secret phrase, and then followed by the public key. So I'm gonna just use this text editor here to put that in nicely. So remember that the first one is Babe key pair. So I'm gonna copy the secret phrase up, and then the formatting is all off, but that's okay. We're not even doing this in a text editor, which is fine. The public key is the second thing I need. And that'll be my first command. So let me go ahead and do that. Okay. So in the subkey, and we'll do a separate terminal just to be super clear what we're doing. So this will be the RPC calls, because the next steps is submitting a bunch of different RPC calls. So the first one will be this one. So that looks like it worked. It returned result null, which actually means it worked, and it would have returned an error otherwise. So that's good. And then the second one will be the same type of process, except that I will be putting in the grandpa keys, and this is an insert key for grandpa. You can see it says gran here, right? Yeah, you could miss that one a lot. Also, did you make sure that your RPC port is the correct port? Because you have 2 nodes running on the computer, don't you?
Right.
So you can have a success. The null is like, yes, you successfully submitted a key, but you may have put it in the wrong place. So you need to make sure that in your node that you got there, find out what what you defined as your port. And if you didn't define one, it would have made a random one for you. So we need to check that.
Okay, let's check that. How do we check that?
Check your chain log.
Where?
So go to the node, the logs, and like I would just turn it off and like see what command you run, or go back up. That's correct. That's cool.
Oh yeah, in here you mean. So RPC port.
Yeah, so you put 9933, but I think you may have another node running as 9933, so it would have like assigned you a random port. So what I would do is like rerun. You can see what the random port is, or just rerun the network with 9934.
Okay.
Or use the command ss-tlpn as Rutger's saying, to see what programs are listening on the machine. Yes.
Okay, let's try that. Cool. Let's do that. Okay. Boom.
But Will is saying.
Oh, I don't.
So Will is basically saying that you can just run rotate keys, and that will give you all the keys. So maybe you don't even need to submit. Maybe you don't actually need to submit any Babe or Grandpa key. What I usually do is submit the Babe and Grandpa key, and there's many other keys that you need to submit. You've got I'm online, parachain assignment, beefy. There's plenty of keys there. It's kind of tedious. So rotate keys is a great way to speed that whole thing up.
Okay, let's do that. And I think your point on me running a node, I actually killed that node, Ramsey. So it's not actually running anymore.
Okay, great. So
right?
Okay.
So I think it should be fine.
But it's great to check that. It's great to hit that point home, because you could be lost for hours, or if you're lucky, you might be days, like just trying to guess what the heck's going on. So
I mean, should I just try Will's command? Let me try Will's command. So that's has session keys. Oh, okay, I can see what those keys. Yeah.
Perhaps you have them. Is that
yeah. I need to put
address?
I need to put the correct session keys. Cool. What would that look like? Okay, so that would be my public address, right?
Yes. The hex version of your public address for your it would be for your Sasha. It would be for your Sasha account ID that you submitted, that we did yesterday. So if you could show people perhaps how, just like how to set up an account. So basically, if you want to learn to be a validator on the Popart network or any other network, you'll need to create an account, and you'll need to then request to the admin or whatever process. Maybe there's a governance there, but on Popart there's a the admin, which is me. You request to be sent some POP tokens, and I would then register you as your account as a validator. So that account that you created will need to be, I believe, if I'm not really confusing things, no, it's correct. So basically, this account that you create will need to be added as in that RPC call, if I'm not mistaken. Will, am I barking up the wrong tree here? I think that's correct, right?
Yeah. So okay, I just need to
get things under pressure.
I just need to get the.
Oh yeah, we'll get there.
1 second. So this is just a trick, I guess, that we haven't documented, but it'll be just a RPC call to get the session keys under this account. So I'm going to I have my public key here, and I'm just going to replace it, and this should work. Yeah, it's throwing an error. I don't understand why. Let's just continue with these steps. That
I think actually I was incorrect. You just have to, sorry, I'm mistaken. This is cool. This is fine. This is so basically that you're using the hex version of the seed. So in the RPC call you make, you have the seed, and then you have the public hex version that you put in there, and that's enough. As Will mentioned, on-chain accounts don't have any relation to the Keystore. We're going to do that. We're going to do that after. We're going to set the keys after in the next step.
Wait, so to be clear, what am I inputting in this params?
So what you're putting is for the babe. So if you go to where you created your babe information at the top there, you're getting the seed and putting that in the parameter where you have to add the seed. Not the hex version, the mnemonic version of the seed, which you perhaps already have done. And then you want to get the public key, the hex version of the public key, and add that in the correct place.
So I've already done this RPC call.
Okay.
And then now I'm doing the grandpa RPC call with the same structure, correct?
With the same structure. And of course, with the params, the first one being, you want to change it from babe to gran.
Okay. Okay, so that didn't return an error.
Didn't return an error. That's great.
Cool. Okay, now we need to rotate the keys. So rotate keys literally just means
it creates for you new keys essentially. So it's it's really useful for us now because it saves us having to make lots of sub keys and do 6 or 7 RPC calls. I think Rococo has 7 session keys you have to add in.
Actually, right now in our Keystore, we should be able to see this. We should be able to see our grandpa key and there you go. So that worked. That we're happy. So we can double check, this one ends in 0B5, 0B5, and then 54A, which is here. This public key ends in 54A. So that makes us happy. And then in our next step, from my memory, this will actually be populated with a whole bunch of other keys. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about what those keys are, while I just do the command.
Yes. So you rotating keys produces for you all the keys you need without you having to submit them each individually at the beginning. That's really useful. But the main purpose of rotating keys is to create for you new keys. It's a secure. It's a security feature, I believe. And so now we've got that returned result, which you've highlighted. We can then go to the Polkadot.js user interface and submit and set our keys and connect them to. And this is the point where we connect them to the account ID we created.
Okay, let's do that. So I'm going to go to developer. Extrinsics, and I'm going to set my keys. So it's actually a call to the session palette, and the function is called set keys. Let's do it. So basically, this is a concatenation of all the keys that I need to be a validator on this network. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a concatenation of all those session keys, and you're typing in 0x00 as proof. I was told to do that. I don't actually know what that does. So before we do anything in production, we have to make sure we check about these things. But
I was told that at least right now, it's just not a functionality that's been implemented, as simply as that. So you could put whatever in there, but for the sake of making things look pretty, we just put 0x00. So if I submit this transaction, so by the way, at this point, I've already this account that I control, this Sasha Popart account, has funds in it. So Ramsey actually sent me some pop tokens so that I could actually submit this call. So now I need to sign this transaction. I just need to get access to this account, and then I'll do this so that we can. So I sign this transaction. Okay, it went through. Cool.
Great.
It's in the block.
The block. Maybe you can check the blocks if you go to Network Block Explorer. Maybe we can.
So
It's always good to double check and just see.
So I've paid the fees. So and the transaction went through. So there's no actual event for this.
There's no event. Okay. Yeah, that's probably one of the only things that doesn't have an event. So you'd have to just make sure that just be happy with that green thing. But it's always good to check the Block Explorer to see like the events there.
Yeah, you can add in 0x for the proof. I don't know what so Will confirms that the 0x is just standard, whatever. Just that works. It works.
That's working right now. As long as we want to get things working.
Exactly.
That's the initial objective here.
So we've done step 7. And what happens? Oh yeah, let's just check this, right? We wrote down here, if the step worked correctly, we should be able to see this in our Keystore. So essentially, it'll just be a concatenation of everything, or it'll have all of the different keys, and that includes. I put some links down at the bottom of this MD file, but essentially, it's a whole bunch of required keys to be running as a validator, and 2 of them are these babe and grandpa keys, and then there's a whole bunch of other stuff. So that worked. Okay. Let's clear that. And
if I could just ask, Will, because I've forgotten in live setting, what's the how do we check what the current authorities are in the chain state? I forgot where it is.
So the current authorities will actually be in this validation manager storage item, I'm pretty sure. So, oh yeah, no. So the authorities that will be added to the next set will be here. However, the current authorities are, let's see, chain state. It's currently registered.
I've done this many times, but you can just forget things very quickly. So this is why it's really important to have like really clean, really good organization about what you're doing.
Next keys, is it validators? Here, right? So these are the current.
Oh, well done, yeah. It's just session validators, yeah.
Technically, if I'm in there, this isn't true. Let's double check. Yeah, no, this is all of the sort of peering validator accounts. But I'm confused now.
Okay, so it's session next keys and session queued keys is all the registered.
There you go. Okay.
Ones on for the chain session. Yeah. Okay. Session next keys.
Right. Oh yeah. So this is just a prettier version of what we saw here in the Keystore, right?
That's it. So look. So see what rotate keys did is it made for you I'm online key, para validator, para assignment, authority discovery, and beefy. So you didn't actually have to submit it yourself. So that's really helpful and it saves time.
P5.
And so, yeah, the keys become active when you set them in with the extrinsic that we did there, session set keys. That's when they become connected to your account ID.
Okay, cool. So getting back to this, like we're basically almost done here. I need you, Ramsey, to register me.
Yes. So you can actually show. You can basically take people through the paces there. You won't be able to sign it because you're not the pseudo, but you can just show there what I would be doing. So I would it's a pseudo call. It would be a pseudo call.
Right. So it would be pseudo.
But it doesn't show up because my pseudo account's not there. But nonetheless, it would be a pseudo call, and then you can just show what extrinsic it is. Validator manager. And then register validator. So when you become, an admin starting up a chain and starting to onboard, validators, then you'll be signing extrinsic like this to register Sasha Popart as a validator, a possible validator in the validator set.
Yeah. So if I sign this, obviously won't work, but I need to be sudo to actually do this.
That's it. You get bad origin. So bad origin means the origin who's the person, the account that signed that account, the account that signed that extrinsic is not of the correct origin, meaning root. You need a root origin, basically, which is the sudo.
Yeah. And so, what's our last
maybe step? A good thing to do is to restart your node. Like, it doesn't normally. Just to make sure for sanity, as a sanity check, just to restart and start your node again, just to make sure that those keys have been updated and things like that. Sanity checks are really essential, just to make sure you're always double checking what you're doing in each step, because you can very easily make silly mistakes, especially if you've been working. If you're a bit tired, and that's why it's great having a buddy, because you can like support each other in like what you're doing. And like, I've been trying to fix something for hours, and then I ask my buddy, like, what am I doing here? And he'll say, like, have you checked the most obvious thing? Or, have you checked the chain spec? Or are you in the correct branch? Or are you launching with the correct chain spec? And I'll look back and I'll be, oh no, thank you.
Yeah. So what were the biggest kind of pain points that you had when you were setting up your test network?
Oh, so many. Like, one of the, I would say one of the main blockers was the tediousness of thinking that I need to submit all these RPC keys, like all these session keys via an RPC call. I was like, if I want to launch many validators, because with Babe you want to have a bunch of, if you only got a few validators, things can go wrong. So you want to have a bunch of validators, and then so like if you multiply 7 validators by that's 14 by 7 keys, you've got like 49 keys to submit. So then I found out, you only need to submit a few keys to get the chain to produce blocks and finalize blocks, and then once that's happening, then you can start doing rotate keys. So you don't actually need to submit all those keys. We bricked a chain, so we launched a chain like at the beginning of the year, and it produced 100,000 blocks, and then it didn't, and then it stopped, and we couldn't understand why. So then we dug into the parity text issues, and we found that, like I mentioned at the beginning, that with Babe you need to produce at least 1 block per epoch, and because our nodes went down for at least an epoch, that means our 100,000 blocks are now, thrown in the dustbin, and you have to start again, essentially. So that was another one. Plenty. Oh, this is why it's good to kind of do it as we go, have mistakes as we go, because there are so many hindrances. Mm-hmm. And it's just great to kind of, buddying up with someone was the best thing the best thing you can do. Like, together you're, much stronger, and you can learn together and keep each other, on the right track, basically.
So what happens
when a chain halts?
What happens when a chain halts?
When a chain halts, if you don't get it back up and running within the session, then it's busted, like, and you have to start again, essentially. So with Popart, with this version of Popart, we were very conscious to be very careful not to bust the chain, and that's great learning, because it's training us to kind of preserve, and producing blocks the more blocks you produce, the more valuable, your network is, basically. So, yeah, so like we were very careful in how we were managing our validators. It's teaching us to, have good practice in terms of running these things. In theory, you can very much understand everything in theory, but when it comes into practice, it can be quite, there's lots of nitty gritty and lots of like maintenance.
So Ramsey, there's a couple questions that came in, and then before wrapping up, I had a few at the bottom of the GitHub page. So the first question is, why does the database have a smaller size after restarting a Polkadot service? After 1 week of working, it's much bigger, but when you restart it, it's smaller. And then why is there a need to free around 20 gigs of space on a machine with a validator?
Yeah. What like when you're producing blocks and you're creating more storage in your database, and that the size of that storage grows. So when you restart the chain, there is no blocks, so it will be smaller. You need a bunch of space, like at least 20 gigs, probably more, with like relay chains, especially ones that are going to get used a lot and tested with parachains. You need enough space to be able to handle, because validators are they store everything from the beginning. Like they store all the blocks, all the storage, I believe. So if you just launch a node that's not with the validator flag, it only stores the last 256 blocks. So basically, a validator is an archive node, and so like you can launch an archive node that's not a validator, and they're normally great for being something that you make RPC calls to, or to like look into the chain storage from the beginning. So they might be like Subscan. Services like Subscan, they will have archive nodes up to make calls there, and all chains will have archive nodes, in order to have whatever functionality on whatever palettes they're using, would require that. Maybe you're using EVM and things like that. So there are chains. So that's why validators store everything, because there has to be some node that has a full that knows what the entire state is.
Right. Yeah. And basically this DB folder in the base path here, right? If you're looking over here, it's what's going to when you're relaunching a chain, you will at least start from whatever's stored in memory in that database, which will have the information about the previous block stored and everything. So that's why when you're starting from scratch, it takes a long time to synchronize the chain, because you're really populating that database with the information about the blocks. And if you've already started it, then it's easier to launch it. So if I go here, I can see. Oops.
Correct.
Yeah.
And also, Will mentioned that you can actually run a validator in pruning mode, which means like you can prune. You only need to store the last 1,000 blocks of state storage.
Yeah, cool. Basically, I hope that answers the question on why we need so much space, and does it vary in time depending on what you've already set up. Sure. So, and then of course, there's a good question on oh, sorry, Ramsey, what's you want to say?
No, I was just going to say, like, or maybe Will can clarify it. There needs to be some nodes that store everything, like, of course, right? Maybe clarify that. But yeah.
So the other question is how to add validators when there is no sudo. Will's answer, who he just wrote on the question, is it depends on the chain and the chain type. In the chain, in this example, it's a permission chain and has this validator manager palette added. So essentially, it's just a kind of different type of sudo in a way. But the question is asking, how to add validators when there is no sudo.
How to add validators when there is no sudo. You might maybe you've designed the chain to be able for anyone to add a validator. probably not great to do in practice. Or you in a live setting, you would have some governance or some committee there to onboard validators, or there'll be bonding. I think in Polkadot they do bonding. So if you bond enough dots, you may be included in the validator set.
Yeah, remember that this is a proof of authority blockchain that we went over today, and that if it was a proof of stake type blockchain, though, it just would be a whole different thing altogether, because these aren't value bearing networks. That's the whole point in these test networks. You don't necessarily want to have like real value bearing. You could probably, create some sort of like staking system that has no value, but there's maybe not as much of a point as there is to just launch a network like we did today with just a proof of authority. And so essentially, if it was to be a proof of stake type network, even value bearing or not, well, you would be adding validators could add themselves through bonding, like validators do on a relay chain network like Polkadot or Kusama.
Sure. Yeah.
But that's just kind of my analysis on like having just worked with this test network, where it's just a matter of understanding it. These are proof of authority nodes, and the mechanism is very different to reach consensus than it would be on a staking network, right?
Absolutely. And I see Rutger said there, the real value is friends we made along the way with a red heart there. That's absolutely true. Absolutely true. This is we're building decentralized human networks, really. And and just kind of summarize, we've gone along the process here of connecting a validator to Popart, and I invite people to come and practice, come and be a validator here yourself. It'd be great if you could just practice on a local testnet to begin with Alice and Bob and things like that. And once you feel like some minimum level of competence there, then come and contact me as I'm the admin currently, and I'll steward you through the process of also being a validator. And then you can come and test your parachain and things like that. And we're going to do some kind of competitions of who can maintain their validator best, and who can produce the most blocks as a parachain on our network. We're going to incentivize preservation and maintenance and things like that. And our community are going to we fund grant what I experienced, getting funded to participate and be a contributor essentially in a decentralized governance system, which is a whole new thing. So it's great. Yeah. So I invite you to come and try. Come and I'll help you on board as a validator essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. It is all about community and coordinating humans. So that kind of concludes the seminar for today. This is cool. I hope it was useful for people. We didn't kind of go through this last step, but connecting to telemetry to see your validator in the context of it being selected. Once it gets selected in the next round, then it will kind of be verifying and authoring blocks, which is the whole point in this thing. So you can see my Sasha node that we did today is there, and if everything worked, I should be also validating to this network. But because I don't have it running on an instance, on a cloud instance or anything, I'm probably going to kill the node at some point. But who knows? Maybe I will get a Raspberry Pi or some sort of dedicated device to be running all the time for this. But since I just did it on my laptop, it's probably not the best setup. And on that note, this whole lesson, so to speak, everything we went through for seminar is available for you guys to maybe make a PR to. Maybe you want to add something to it in this questions section. Maybe you have ideas of how to make it better. So please try to use this new seminar repo to do that. And let's try to build more of a community around everyone here today and beyond interested in learning about Substrate. Ramsey, do you have any final words before we sign off?
That was fun. That was great. Yes. It's a shame that, like, you know, in this process we didn't get to see you producing blocks, but maybe you know, on the next Substrate seminar, I propose, like, you know, we then go on to connect a parachain, and then thereafter the really exciting thing, like launch your own kind of relay network in a staging network setting, so shared network. So that would be cool. Yeah, thanks for having me on, by the way.
Cool. Yeah, Ramsey, it was super cool to have you present, and especially somebody who's gone through all these pain points. Yeah, Ramsey is available. What's the best way to contact you, Ramsey?
You can find me on Element or Discord or Telegram. I'll share the links in the box here.
Awesome. With that being said, thank you very much, everybody. Just last reminder, the call for proposals is due on the 21st of March. So please check that out if you are interested, and don't miss the deadline. Thanks for everyone also in the chat. That includes you, Rutger, Will, thanks a lot, Ale also, and everyone else. You guys have a great day, and stay tuned for the next seminar in 2 weeks. Cheers, Ramsey.
Awesome. Thanks, Sasha.
Take care.
Cheers.